Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fish Tank. I'm bad as a fish, and things are about to get spooky. It's that time again, it's Minion Masters patch notes. Okay, so this update is going to be called Arise, and when we look at the new cards, you'll see exactly why it is called that. But what are we going to be finding out about Arise? Okay, so Arise is going to be version 1.46. It's going to be dropping on Thursday, the 13th of March. We will be getting a free DLC since it's a brand new expansion, but please note the DLC will be a bit later than normal. It will be available from the 21st of March, and that's due to some kind of promotion that's going to be running with Steam. Right, we're going to have a new season pass, some new cards, new cosmetics, balance changes, and bug fixes. Let's find out about those. Right, so first of all, the new season pass. So this is going to be an accursed theme season pass, and as you can see, we got the couple of new cards. We got a new skin, some avatars and emotes, and as you can see there from the question mark, we got a little secret surprise. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's find out about the new cards. So the first new card, this is the guy that we see in the artwork for the update. This is Rendrath, the Deathless. But what does Rendrath do? Okay, so he's an 8 mana accursed minion. He's got 800 health and 150 damage every 3.3 seconds. So similar HP and DPS for Fanriel if you want a comparison there. He's going to be available at tier 49 in the free pass or immediately in the season pass. But what's special about Rendrath? Well, he attacks Rendrath's mark when he attacks something. Now, his mark is permanent, so once he's attacked something and applied the mark, that unit is marked. But what does the mark do? Well, when a marked unit dies, that minion will return under your control. It will have 50% health and damage, 50% of its maximum health and damage, and it will be cursed. And that will appear 5 seconds after the unit dies. So, for example, if you mark a statue, for example, once the statue dies, 5 seconds later, you'll have a half health and half damage statue that is cursed that will arise to fight for you. Now, when it says half health, it doesn't spawn with half its maximum health. It spawns with 100% of half its health. So you can't heal it back up to what it was before. And of course, remember, it is cursed, so it will be taking substantial damage every second. Now, interestingly, there is no cooldown on his ability of how quickly he can mark things. The only limitation is his attack speed. So he can kill a scrat, mark it, kill a next scrat, mark it, and these scrats will then be returning to fight after 5 seconds. So he can revive a lot of units. So it'd be very interesting to see how people play this and what sort of strats. I've heard some suggestions of what people are going to be trying. We'll not talk about that here. We'll let that occur organically. So we'll see what happens and if people are able to use Rendrath successfully. Now, one thing to mention is, whilst he is accursed, he doesn't have any accursed ascension effect. So you can put him in your accursed decks, but you could also play him out of accursed decks. So it'll be interesting to see what people decide to do. And if we have a look what Rendrath looks like in the flesh, not really a good phrase, since he has no flesh, but he looks awesome. The graphics of these new units are great. Okay, so that's Rendrath, the first guy. The second dude, who looks kind of cool, he's called Ghast. Now, in a vacuum, Ghast does look awesome. The problem is, when he's released next to Rendrath, he appears to be Rendrath from Wish. But let's have a look at Ghast in a little bit more detail. So he's a 5 mana accursed minion. So 500 HP, and he does 100 damage, again, every 3.3 seconds. Now, he has a similar effect, but crucially different to Rendrath. So he doesn't apply a marked, but whenever an enemy minion dies nearby, he will raise a skeleton. So unlike Rendrath, where he's marking and then reviving that particular unit, this guy will be reviving skeletons just if anything within the vicinity dies. And there is a 5-second cooldown on that. So you can't just revive stuff constantly. You can revive skeletons every 5 seconds if things are dying. So interesting. A much similar version of the card. Again, an accursed card, so he will fit in accursed decks, but no a Cursed Ascension trigger, so you don't need to play it in a Cursed deck. So again, be interesting to see where Ghast finds himself. And again, Ghast is a great looking minion, but again, next to Rendrath, does look like the black sheep of the family. But I love the look of these new cards. Okay, so those are the 2 new cards. And now we'll look at the new cosmetics. So as always, we're going to have a new skin. So this is going to be a Slitheress Diona skin. I'm looking forward to getting this. I do like to play Diona, and this is a great looking Diona skin. And of course, we've got a little skin for Ruffles as well. Now, along with the skin, we're going to have a new emote. This is the Happy Skelly emote. And of course, we get a couple of new avatars, which is going to be the Ghast avatar. And, don't know why it's much smaller, but the Rendrath, the Deathless avatar. So those are the new cosmetics, which of course are going to be available in the Season Pass. Oh, actually, there is just one more thing I want to mention regarding the cosmetics. And I don't know, people may or may not be interested in this, but also included in the Season Pass is the High Five emote. People have been wanting to get their hands on the High Five Puff emote for a long, long time. If you don't know, this is an awesome emote. If you and your teammate both emote this at the same time, the Puff emotes will do a little high five, and it's incredible. Previously, it was only available through the Refer a Friend program that has been broken for about 17 years. But now it's available. So this is going to be a great... I know a lot of people are going to be happy about this. So I look forward to seeing much more high-fiving community love out there in the gameplay. Right. So that's a nice surprise. I was very surprised to see that when I looked through the Battle Pass, and pleasantly surprised, let me tell you. Right, so moving on from that excitement, we're going to have a look at the balance changes now. So we're going to look at buffs, rebalances, and nerfs, and start off with the buffs. Okay, we've got a kill threshold increase to the Arcane Bolt. So it can now immediately kill things up to 450 health, previously up to 400. So added to the things it can kill a Defenso Chopper, a Shield Captain of Air, Vux Clutch Cooker, and, crucially, Zips Zapinator, a card that is very, very annoying to play against. Now, one thing to point out, of course, if you're not familiar with how Mana Freeze works, although this is a 3 mana card, it does have 2 Mana Freeze, so it does cost 5 mana, so please keep that in mind when using it. Right, next up we have a small health increase to the Bazooka Scrat. You know, this will just help it get through, get a little bit more value. Sometimes it kind of gets through somehow to face and gets a hit off. Now it's going to be much more likely, well, not much more likely, a little bit more likely to do so. Small attack cooldown to the Bounceberry Flingers. Remember, attack cooldown is how quickly they can attack, so a smaller number is better. So we're going down from 2 seconds to 1.9 seconds. Not much, but overall, a DPS increase. Bounceberry Flingers get a lot of hate for some reason. I quite like them. Right, next up we have a change to the Frozen mechanic. So the duration for a freeze is going up from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. It's all been a bit confusing. It was supposed to be 5 when it started, but it was bugged and was only 3. And now it's gone up from 3 to 4. I'm not sure if that's right, but someone can clarify. Okay, so next up we have a change to the Gorex Gate. The Elite Swarmers being replaced by the Flightless Dragons. So that's good in a couple of reasons. Firstly, the Flightless Dragons have less HP than the Elite Swarmers, so potential less blood pack damage. And of course, they have much higher DPS. Now, not sure if the Flightless Dragons can get the Rage trigger. Probably not, which is, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it... I haven't tried that out on the test realm, so we'll see how that works. Right, next up, a small damage increase to Grasping Thorns. Probably just an underplayed card. Small damage going up from 220 to 240. And well, it can now kill an Elite Swarmer, which it couldn't do before. Woohoo! Now, a small change to the Idol of Sacrifice. So this is designed to be a buff. So instead of it getting Rage, as it previously did, it's now going to get Haste instead. So I guess the idea behind that is... You know, a Rage statue that doesn't get to face isn't great, but if a hasted statue that does get to face could be much better. So a little change designed to be a buff there to the Idol of Sacrifice. Now, Korgoth, there were some bigger changes to Korgoth. They didn't go through. What he is receiving is the cost of his seal going down from 5 to 4. So remember, you have to play his seal twice before he's active. The seal is the card that gives you the invokes. Previously was 5 mana, now it's 4 mana. You've got to spawn it twice, so it saves you 2 mana in the long run. Nice little change. Will it change much? Probably not, but it's definitely a movement in the right direction. And here we see a small change to magnetic bombs. Their damage going up from 80 to 90, and they will speed up over time. So they'll start at their speed of 4 and speed up, and they will reach their maximum speed of 16 at the enemy's tower, which is fast. Now we see a small health increase to the Net Blaster. This is just like the Bazooka Scrap received, up from 120 to 140. Just try to get it a little bit more value. Now we have Siegebreaker Mark 1. So this has always been an interesting card where I didn't think it was... It wasn't a tank and it wasn't DPS. It wasn't tanky enough to be a tank. It wasn't strong enough DPS-wise to be DPS. So the devs needed to make a decision about which way they wanted to take it. And they're taking it down the tank route. So now it's going up from 550 to 625 HP. So that's almost as much HP as Azali. So this is definitely a tank, and we'll see if it does a better job tanking in this role now. But I expect to see more of the Siegebreaker Mark 1. Rumour has it there's a Mark 2. I've just made that up. Right, now we have a look at the rebalances, where things get changed in multiple ways, or if it's not necessarily obvious if it's a nerf or a buff. Okay, so first of all, we have a change to Valorian. So this is designed as a buff for Valorian in 1v1, but a nerf in 2v2. So his perk 2, the Healing Light, it's going to heal minions for more, up from 15 to 20, but it will no longer heal your teammates' minions. Next up, we have City Watch, a card that has kind of overtaken the Dragon's Nest as the card that gets changed constantly all the time at the moment. Right, City Watch, mana cost going up from 5 to 6, but it will go back to summoning 1 Legionnaire and 2 crossbow dudes, where previously it was 3 crossbow dudes, and it's being removed from the random pool. So you can't get that in any sort of random manner. And just moving on from the random pool thing. Also, Rock Rivals has been removed from the random pools. So that means you can't get it from APET Perk 3 or from a Walking Blind Date. Unfortunately, the way the random pool works is that if you exclude something from the random pool, it also unfortunately gets excluded from draft, which kind of makes sense for City Watch, I guess, but not so much for Rock Rivals. But that's just the way things work. Maybe in 2.0, things will be a little bit better. Now we see a change to the Spell Dancer. So the Spell Dancer is getting a couple of extra arcane spheres. Those are the spheres that spin around her. So that's a buff. But also the way that her ability works. Remember, if you're in Mana Surge, 6+ mana, she'll fire the arcane sparks out. And we'll see a little later, this is the same change that the Arcane Barrage is receiving. So the sparks will be fired one at a time. So basically what that means is your opponent will have time to react to it. Every time, whilst it does fire the sparks quickly, every time it goes to fire a spark, it will recalculate the target in the area. So the area is set on cast, but every time a spark is fired, then the target is recalculated, which means if you react quickly, throw down a scrap pack or something, trying to defend your units, then you can potentially keep things alive that previously you couldn't do, because previously all of the sparks were targeted immediately on cast, and there was no way there was any counterplays. So I like this change. Counterplay is always something that's interesting, right? It's the same sort of thing with Harmful Souls. If they try to Harmful Souls your big unit, then if you've got some Horde, you throw them down and try and soak some of those hits. Similar thing here. I think with the way I've seen this work, you need to be much faster though. Right, Toll of the Dead. So this did get a hotfix nerf in the last season. So part of this is reversing that. So the mana cost going down from 6 to 5. That's reversing the hotfix nerf back to where it was before. But the copies allowed being removed. So no wildcards of Toll of the Dead anymore. Okay, so a few changes to Unholy Ground. Let's see if we can get them out. So previously Unholy Ground would ground air minions, but wouldn't affect ground minions. So it's going to change now. So it's going to immobilize all minions. So all enemy minions in the area will lose flying and be immobilized. So ground minions basically will be immobilized now, where previously they wouldn't. The duration is going down from 10 seconds to 7 seconds, so it's not going to loiter around quite so long, but it will still be spawning the same amount of skeletons over the time. Now, interestingly, it will only spawn a skeleton when an enemy is in the area. So that's a big change. This is going to cause some confusion because it's not mentioned on the card, but that's how it's supposed to work. And the reason that's a big change is you'll no longer be able to just throw Unholy Ground down in the middle of the bridges and take both of them, or on a bridge to take the bridge. If there's nothing there, then nothing's going to happen. The best you can get is it's kind of deterring the enemy from spawning in there. So more of, I guess it's changing the card to be more about what it's supposed to be about, rather than just using it to take bridges and stuff. And the first skeleton is spawned immediately. So as long as there's something in the area, the first skeleton is spawned immediately. So if you've used it in the past, where you've got a cleaver running towards you and you throw it down and you're just waiting, hopefully, for that skeleton to spawn and take the cleaver hit, now you don't need to worry so much about that, because the skeleton will be spawned immediately as long as the cleaver is in there. And the way it works is every time a skeleton is due to be spawned, it will check to see if anything's in the area, and then determine whether it's going to spawn it or not. And now we move on to the nerfs. So as we spoke about with the Spell Dancer, the Arcane Barrage is also going to be firing the Arcane Sparks one at a time. So again, there's going to be more counterplay available instead of just immediately nuking whatever you want to. Next up is a change to the Bannerman. And of course, before we get into these changes, Mana Chasers have been everywhere in the last season. People have been very frustrated with how OP they have been, and I know that's a fair way to see the way the last season's been. But we're going to see some changes that are definitely going to affect the Mana Chasers. So Bannerman can no longer shield flying minions. So I think one thing to mention about flying minions is flying minions are inherently stronger in a vacuum than ground minions, because they have less counters. So therefore, flying minions, if you are able to shield them, heal them, spirit them, etc., they get kind of a better bonus than just ground minions would. So we're going to see some changes here that will affect how flying minions are impacted by buffs and stuff. So remember, currently flying minions get half healing and half bonus from spirits. So this is kind of just adding to that kind of restriction on what air units can be buffed with. So the Bannerman can no longer shield flying minions. That's going to hurt the Mana Chasers for sure. We'll get to some more of those changes in a minute. So Chain Lightning, the jump distance is going down from 7 to 6, so harder to get more value out of it. And maybe you'll have to pay more attention to the way that you expect it to jump. Because if it has a long jump distance, you can kind of place it in the middle and it jumps one way and then jumps the back. Whereas if you've got less jump distance, then you might have to place it correctly so it goes through in a little zigzag and gets them all. So a little nerf there, and maybe something that requires people to be just a little bit more careful with how they play things. Right, Dormant Defenders, copies allowed down from 3 to 1. I'm happy with that change. No wildcards there. And again, as we look with the Bannerman, Guardian can no longer protect flying minions. So remember, the Guardian only protects Crystal Elf, so the only thing that this affects is the Mana Chasers, but maybe in the future, if there's any more flying Crystal Elves, then this will affect that as well. So a healthy change for the Mana Chasers, but a healthy change going forward as well. Now we see a nerf to Jolo. So the way Jolo works is he starts with a 100% chance to dodge the next damage, assuming it's not true damage. And then every time he dodges, previously his dodge dropped by 10%, now it's going to drop by 15%. So previously he would have 100%, then 90, 80, 70, etc. Now it's going to start at 100, but then go down to 85, 70, etc. So a little nerf to Jolo there. I don't hate that. He still does what he does the best, which is that guaranteed first dodge. So we like that. He's just not going to be so. He's not going to just hang around for so long or trade so well. But a nice change, I think, to a strong legendary that will still be played. And the nail in the coffin, maybe for the Mana Chasers, their range going down from 8 to 6. So they will now be outranged by a lot of ground minions, a lot of range minions. So for like Plasma Marines, Drone Buzzers, Drone Walker, for example, will outrange them. So they'll trade the Mana Chasers much worse in those situations. So a lot of nerfs either directly or indirectly to the Mana Chasers. So that's definitely going to put an end to that meta. Will we still see Mana Chasers? Maybe. But we won't be seeing decks that are just built around the Mana Chaser cheese. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't think we're going to see too much of that going forward. And we see a nerf here to the Scrat Tank. Scrat Tank health going down from 650 to 600. So I think this is kind of an offshoot of the fact that the Scrat Tank is so good at tanking, so good at hanging around on bridges after the changes to the bridges and making them more difficult to cap, that the Scrat Tank just intrinsically gets more value in terms of generating UXP by hanging around on the bridges. So I think that's why it's been nerfed. And interestingly there, as we saw earlier, the Siegebreaker now has more HP than the Scrat Tank. Who saw that coming? Now, Shield Captain Avea, this is, again, she can no longer shield flying minions, so that's going to be more difficult to trigger her quest. You won't be able to just throw some bats in or some prop scrats that she can then shield. So this is definitely a nerf to Avea. Could put her in a healthy spot. I feel like she's been strong for a long time. This could be the thing that she requires just to make it a little bit more awkward to get that that triggered. Because, you know, sometimes she can just be ahead going towards face. You just throw some bats and you can kind of get a free activation. Whereas now you're going to have to be a little bit more, a little smarter about how you do it. Okay, so that's the end of the balance changes. Just a couple of things to mention. If you've been following along with the PTR for Minion Masters, the test realm, you will have known that there are some other changes that were tested and some of them that didn't make it through based on the feedback that was given. So crucially, I think that the Setsu rework, that wasn't decided to be a good rework, so that is currently on hold. And also the Korgoth rework, that didn't go through. So if you're interested in seeing balance changes as they come in and getting your feedback, make sure you join the Minion Masters PTR. Go to the Discord, give yourself the PTR role, and get involved. Right, so there we have it. That is the balance changes. Now finally we're going to look at the bug fixes. A few to go through here. So fixed ground minions being affected by Net Blaster being able to target air. So if you've seen, I don't know, a Fergus spinning around and shredding everything in the air, that was why. And now it won't happen anymore. Right, Bears in Bearvalanche running the wrong way. This is about the 8th time this has been fixed. Is it the one? We'll find out. Fixed Wrecked Perk 3 showing incorrect damage figure. That's now been fixed at 250. Fixed the Living Statue Slitherbind, not working. Removed Mana Surge visuals where appropriate, so that's probably for things like Fanriel and Crystal Sentry, etc. Removed Apep Swirling Projectiles. That was something from his previous attack where it would be buffed by 5+ mana cards, which isn't a thing anymore. Fixed the Blind Date spawning glowing units. Fixed glowing Mana Chasers. I don't think I ever saw that, but if you did, you shouldn't see it again. Fixed the Flightless Dragons not getting Rage triggered. That was apparently something that only happened in 2v2s. I definitely noticed that, and that should now be fixed. And fixed the Spelldancer's range showing when Spark's not activated. So remember the Spelldancer, if you're not in Mana Surge, 6+ mana, she won't shoot her Sparks, and therefore you shouldn't really see the indication of her range. So hopefully that's been fixed now. Right, and there we have it. So that is Minion Masters Arise version 1.46. Remember, this is dropping Thursday. We're going to have a DLC. I've made a mistake on this. The DLC is the 21st. I'll see if I can update it in post. We've got a new season pass. We've got new cards, which are going to be Rendrath, the Deathless, and Ghast. We've got the new Slither Estiona skin and the High Five emote. Balance changes and bug fixes, of course. And there we have it. We got through it. Thanks so much for joining me for this. I'm very excited to see the changes, the new cards, and see how the balances land. Hopefully you are too. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about the new cards based on what you've seen on the paper? And what do you think about the changes, the balance changes? Is the stuff that you like, stuff that you hate, things that should have been balanced but weren't? Always good to have that decision going forward. And of course, don't forget to claim your end of season rewards from the Tri-Team Tourney, guild rewards, anything like that. I normally forget, but hopefully I remind you and you don't. And that's pretty much it. If you're enjoying the content here in the Fish Tank, feel free to like, comment and subscribe. And the only thing left to do, of course, is the awkward wave.